The dust swirled across the barren street as Emma Turner clutched her worn leather satchel tighter, her knuckles white with determination. The year was 1875, and Roswell, New Mexico territory, was nothing like the bustling city of St. Louis she'd left behind. But desperate times called for desperate measures, and Emma's desperation had driven her 2,000 miles west with nothing but a handful of coins, her mother's recipes, and the fading hope of a fresh start. The journey had been arduous. 3 weeks on trains and stage coaches that rattled her bones and tested her resolve. Emma had buried her parents 6 months prior, victims of the influenza that had swept through their neighborhood. At 22, she had found herself alone in the world, their modest bakery sold to cover debts, with nothing left but her skill with flour and yeast. Emma's gaze settled on the weathered sign swinging above the town's only restaurant. Silver Dollar Saloon and Eatery. According to the stagecoach driver, the establishment's cook had run off with a traveling medicine show 2 weeks prior, leaving the owner desperate for someone who could prepare more than charred beef and watery stew. "This has to work," Emma whispered to herself, ignoring the curious stares of the townsfolk as she straightened her travel-worn dress and pushed open the swinging doors. The interior was dimly lit, smelling of tobacco, whiskey, and something burnt. A long bar stretched along one wall, while mismatched tables filled the rest of the space. Despite the early hour, a few patrons hunched over glasses, and a card game continued in the corner. Behind the bar stood a man with a thick mustache polishing glasses with a questionable rag. "Help you, miss?" he asked, his eyes narrowing suspiciously. "I'm looking for the owner," Emma replied, her voice steadier than her nerves. "I heard you need a cook." The man's eyebrows rose. "That would be me. Frank Wilson." "And yes, I do need a cook, but I can cook," Emma interrupted. "I ran a bakery in St. Louis with my parents before they passed. I can make more than just bread. Stews, roasts, pies, anything you need." Frank's expression remained skeptical. "No offense, miss, but this ain't exactly proper work for a lady. The hours are long, the customers can be rough, and Mr. Wilson," Emma cut in again, "I've traveled 2,000 miles to find work. I'm not afraid of long hours or rough customers. What I am afraid of is starving because I'm too proud to use the skills I have." A low whistle sounded from behind her. "She's got spirit, Frank. I'll give her that." Emma turned to find a tall man leaning against the doorframe. Dust covered his clothes, and a wide-brimmed hat shaded his face. When he stepped forward, she could see his features, clearly tanned skin weathered by sun and wind, piercing blue eyes, and a jawline shadowed with stubble. His presence filled the room in a way that made it suddenly feel smaller. "Samuel Davis," he introduced himself with a slight tip of his hat. "Most folks call me Sam." "Emma Turner," she replied coolly, returning her attention to Frank. "May I prove myself, Mr. Wilson? Let me cook today's meals. If you're not satisfied, I'll move on. No payment required." Frank glanced between Emma and Sam, then shrugged. "Kitchen's through there. Not much to work with, I'm afraid. Previous fella wasn't exactly talented." Emma nodded, already mentally inventorying what she might need. "I'll make do." The kitchen was worse than she'd expected, dirty pots piled in corners, a layer of grease covering most surfaces, and ingredients that looked as if they'd been there since the territory was still part of Mexico. But Emma had not come this far to be deterred by a little grime. She rolled up her sleeves and got to work. By midday, the scent of fresh bread filled the saloon, drawing in customers who hadn't set foot in the place for weeks. Emma had managed to salvage enough ingredients to prepare a hearty beef stew, cornbread, and apple pies made from dried fruit she'd soaked back to life. "Never seen the place this busy for lunch," Frank commented as he collected empty plates from satisfied customers. "You might be a godsend, Miss Turner." Emma smiled tiredly, wiping flour from her cheek. "Does that mean I have the position?" "It surely does. Room and board plus $2 a week. Best I can offer." It wasn't much, but it was a start. "I'll take it, Mr. Wilson." But just so we're clear, I'll cook and go. I need my own lodgings. Frank looked disappointed. The room upstairs is part of the deal. Most cooks live where they work. I appreciate that, but I prefer my independence. Emma had learned hard lessons about dependency. I'll find a room elsewhere in town. Rooms aren't easy to come by in Roswell, a deep voice commented. Sam Davis had returned, now cleaned up and changed into fresh clothes. Especially for a woman alone. Emma bristled. I'll manage, Mr. Davis. I always have. Sam studied her for a moment, those blue eyes seeming to see more than she wanted to reveal. The Peterson place is vacant, he said finally. Old widow died last winter. Her son's trying to sell it, but in the meantime, it sits empty. Might rent it to you cheap if you're interested. Before Emma could respond, the saloon doors burst open, and 3 men swaggered in, their spurs jingling with each step. The atmosphere in the room immediately tensed. Well, if it ain't Samuel Davis, drawled the tallest of the 3, a man with a cruel smile and cold eyes. Thought you'd be halfway to Colorado by now. Sam's posture remained relaxed, but Emma noticed how his hand drifted closer to his side. Miller. Didn't realize they let you out of jail already. Miller's smile widened. Good behavior. And now I'm mighty thirsty. His gaze shifted to Emma, and something in his expression made her skin crawl. Who's the new face? None of your concern, Sam replied evenly. Frank, I think it's time these gentlemen moved on. Frank stepped forward nervously. Now, let's not have trouble. First drinks on the house, boys, but then nothing. Miller interrupted. We'll stay as long as we please. He turned to Emma again. You the new cook? How about you fix us something special, darlin'? Emma straightened her spine. Kitchen's closed until supper. Miller's face darkened. That ain't very hospitable. She said the kitchen's closed. Sam stated, his voice carrying a warning that even Emma could hear. For a tense moment, it seemed the situation might explode into violence. Then Miller laughed, though there was no humor in it. Another time, then. We've got business elsewhere anyway. He tipped his hat mockingly. Madam. After they'd left, Emma released a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Miller's trouble, Sam explained, has been since he was a boy. Now he fancies himself an outlaw. Why does he hate you? Emma asked. Sam's expression hardened. That's a long story, Miss Turner. One best saved for another time. He changed the subject. About that house, I can take you there after you're done here if you'd like. Emma hesitated. This stranger had already inserted himself into her affairs more than she was comfortable with, yet she needed lodging. That would be appreciated, Mr. Davis. Sam, he corrected. Mr. Davis was my father. When evening fell, Emma had prepared enough food to satisfy the largest dinner crowd the Silver Dollar had seen in months. Her arms ached, her feet throbbed, but the satisfaction of a job well done and the promise of steady employment eased her weariness. True to his word, Sam waited for her after she cleaned the kitchen. Together they walked through the quiet streets of Roswell, the setting sun painting the adobe buildings in shades of gold and crimson. What brings you to Roswell? Sam asked as they turned down a side street lined with modest homes. Emma considered deflecting the question but decided on honesty. Necessity. After my parents died, there wasn't much left for me in St. Louis. I'm sorry for your loss, he said, and the sincerity in his voice surprised her. Thank you. What about you? Are you from here? Sam shook his head. Born in Virginia. Family moved west when I was 12. Been drifting since the war ended. You fought? Confederate cavalry. Not something I'm proud of now, but at 19, you don't always see things clearly. Emma absorbed this. And what keeps you in Roswell? My ranch, about 10 miles outside town. Trying to build something that'll last. They stopped in front of a small adobe house with a wooden porch. Though weathered, it looked solid, with a small garden plot out front gone to weeds. This is it, Sam said. Not fancy, but it's sound. 1 bedroom, kitchen, small sitting area. Emma peered through the window. The interior was dusty but intact: a table, a few chairs, a cast iron stove. It's perfect. Owner's name is James Peterson. Lives over in Lincoln now. I can send word tomorrow if you're interested. I am. Emma turned to face him. Thank you, Mr. DeSam. You've been unusually kind to a stranger. Something flickered in his eyes. Roswell's small. We look after our own. I'm hardly your own, Emma pointed out. I only arrived today. Then consider it a welcome. He tipped his hat. I'll walk you back to the saloon. You can stay there tonight, and we'll sort out the house tomorrow. As they walked back in companionable silence, Emma found herself studying Sam from the corner of her eye. There was more to this cowboy than met the eye: a gentleness that belied his rugged exterior. It was intriguing. The next morning, Emma rose before dawn to prepare breakfast for the few overnight guests at the saloon. Frank had shown her to a small room upstairs just for the night, she'd insisted. As she kneaded dough for biscuits, she couldn't help but feel a tentative hope. Perhaps Roswell would indeed be the fresh start she needed. The day passed in a blur of cooking and cleaning. By late afternoon, Sam returned with news that the Peterson house was hers for $2 a month, a fair price that would leave her with enough from her wages to save a little. I can help you move in this evening, Sam offered as Emma served him coffee. That's not necessary, she replied. I have very little to move. All the more reason to accept help, he countered with a smile that crinkled the corners of his eyes. Emma relented. After the supper rush, Sam carried her single trunk while she brought her satchel to the small house that would now be her home. Someone Sam, she suspected, had cleaned the place and left fresh firewood stacked beside the stove. The roof doesn't leak, Sam told her as he set down her trunk. And the stove draws well. Peterson's wife was particular about her kitchen. Emma ran her hand along the worn but clean countertop. It's more than I expected to find. Will you be all right here alone? The question carried genuine concern, not the condescension she'd grown accustomed to from men. I will. I've been taking care of myself for some time now. Sam nodded, seeming to understand her need for independence. If you need anything, I'm usually in town every few days. My ranch hand, Thomas, comes in more often for supplies. After he left, Emma sat at the small table, surrounded by silence and the unfamiliar creaks of her new home. For the first time in months she allowed herself to cry, not from sorrow this time, but from relief and the overwhelming sense that perhaps, just perhaps, her luck had finally turned. The following weeks settled into a rhythm. Emma rose before sunrise to prepare for the day at the Silver Dollar. Her food quickly gained a reputation throughout Roswell, drawing travelers who had heard about the best meals between Santa Fe and El Paso. Frank doubled her wages after the first month, having seen his profits increase substantially. Sam came into town regularly, always stopping by the Silver Dollar for a meal. Sometimes he lingered, telling Emma stories about the territory or listening to her recount tales from her childhood in St. Louis. Their conversations evolved from polite exchanges to genuine friendship, something Emma hadn't expected but increasingly valued. One evening, as Emma was closing up the kitchen, Frank approached her with a worried expression. Miss Turner, I've had word that Miller and his boys have been causing trouble again. Robbed a stagecoach outside Lincoln last week. Emma frowned. What does that have to do with us? They were asking about you in Socorro. Someone who passed through said Miller was mighty interested in the pretty cook from Roswell. A chill ran through Emma. Why would he care about me? Can't say. But it might be wise to be extra careful walking home these evenings. Emma nodded, trying not to show her unease. Thank you for the warning. That night, as she walked home, she couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The shadows between buildings seemed deeper, more threatening. When a hand touched her shoulder, she nearly screamed. It's just me, Sam said quickly, stepping into the moonlight. Sorry if I startled you. Emma pressed a hand to her racing heart. What are you doing here? Frank mentioned Miller's been asking about you. Thought I'd make sure you got home safely. That's thoughtful of you, Emma admitted. But unnecessary. Roswell's a small town. Small towns can still be dangerous, Sam replied. Especially when someone like Miller takes an interest. They reached Emma's house, and she unlocked the door. Would you like to come in? I have some leftover apple pie. Sam hesitated, then nodded. Much obliged. Inside, Emma lit a lamp and served the pie she'd brought home from the restaurant. As they sat at her small table, she studied Sam's face in the warm light. Why does Miller hate you so much? Sam set down his fork. Miller's father worked for mine years ago. Got caught stealing cattle and was sent to prison. Died there. Miller blames me for it, though I was barely more than a boy myself when it happened. That hardly seems fair. Hate rarely is. Sam met her gaze. Miller's dangerous, Emma. He doesn't think like normal folks. If he's asking about you, it's because he thinks hurting you might hurt me. Emma's breath caught. And would it? Hurt you, I mean? The question hung between them, loaded with implications either had voiced. Yes, Sam answered simply. It would. The honesty in his voice made Emma's heart flutter in a way she hadn't experienced before. I see. I don't think you do, Sam said, his voice dropping lower. I care for you, Emma. More than I should, perhaps. Emma looked down at her hands. I don't know what to say. You don't need to say anything. I just wanted you to understand why I'm concerned. He stood. I should go. Thank you for the pie. At the door, he turned back. I'll be in town for the next few days. Ranch work's caught up for now. After he left, Emma sat for a long time, her untouched pie forgotten. Sam Davis had come to mean more to her than she'd realized. His steady presence, his quiet strength, the way he respected her independence while still offering support, these things had worked their way into her heart when she wasn't looking. The next morning, Emma was elbow-deep in bread dough when Frank burst into the kitchen, his face ashen. Miller and his gang robbed the bank. There's been shooting. Sam's been hit. Emma's hands froze. Where is he? Doc Winters has him. It's bad, Emma. Without a word, Emma wiped her hands and untied her apron. Watch the bread. It needs another hour to rise before baking. She ran through the streets, her heart pounding. The doctor's office was crowded with onlookers. Emma pushed through them, ignoring the whispers that followed. Inside, she found Sam lying on a table, his shirt cut away to reveal a bloody bandage wrapped around his shoulder. His face was pale, but his eyes opened when she approached. Emma, he whispered. Shouldn't you be cooking? Despite everything, she laughed, the sound tinged with tears. The bread can wait. Doc Winters, a gruff man with kind eyes, motioned her closer. Bullet went clean through. He's lucky missed anything vital. He'll need rest, though. Lots of it. I'll stay with him, Emma said without hesitation. The doctor raised an eyebrow. Miss Turner, that wouldn't be proper. Hang proper, Emma interrupted. He has no family here. Someone needs to care for him. Sam tried to protest. Emma, you don't need to. Be quiet, she ordered. You've looked after me since I arrived. Now it's my turn. The determination in her voice silenced both men. He can't be moved far, Doc Winters said finally. And my office isn't set up for long-term care. My house is close, Emma offered. We can take him there. The doctor hesitated, then nodded. I suppose it's the best option. But, Miss Turner, you understand what people will say. Emma lifted her chin. I've never much cared what people say, Doctor. With the help of several townsmen, they transported Sam to Emma's house. By the time they had him settled in her bed, he had fallen into a fitful sleep, his forehead hot with fever. For 3 days, Emma divided her time between the silver dollar and caring for Sam. She prepared broths and teas, changed his bandages, and cooled his fevered brow with damp cloths. Frank, understanding the situation, allowed her shorter hours and sent a local girl to help with some of the cooking. On the fourth night, Emma sat beside Sam's bed, exhaustion tugging at her. His fever had finally broken that afternoon, and he'd been sleeping peacefully since. She dozed in the chair, waking with a start when his voice, stronger now, reached her ears. "You're still here," he said. Emma straightened. "Where else would I be?" "You told Frank when you started that you'd cook and go." "Not cook and nurse wounded cowboys back to health." She smiled. "Plans change." Sam studied her face, noting the dark circles under her eyes. "You need rest." "I'm fine." "No, you're not." He shifted, wincing slightly. "Come here." Emma moved to the edge of the bed, and Sam took her hand. "Why are you doing this, Emma?" The question was gentle, but it demanded honesty. Emma took a deep breath. "Because I care for you too, Sam. More than I expected to. More than is probably wise." His fingers tightened around hers. "Is it so unwise to care for someone?" "It is when you've lost everyone you've ever loved before." Understanding filled his eyes. "Is that why you keep everyone at arm's length? Why you insisted on living alone, on being so independent?" Emma nodded, tears threatening. "I couldn't bear to lose anyone else." "Emma," Sam said softly, "living in fear of loss means not living at all." The truth of his words pierced her heart. "I know. But knowing and doing are different things. Then let me help you bridge that gap." He tugged her hand gently. "Lie down." "You're exhausted, and I'm not going anywhere." Too tired to argue, Emma stretched out beside him on the bed, careful not to jostle his injured shoulder. His warmth beside her was comforting, and she found herself relaxing for the first time in days. "What happened with Miller?" she asked, her voice already growing drowsy. "Posse caught him and one of his men. Third one got away. They'll stand trial in Santa Fe." "Good," Emma murmured. "He deserved it for shooting you." Sam chuckled, then winced at the movement. "He wasn't aiming for me. I just got in the way when he tried to take a hostage. Still, I'm glad he's caught." As sleep claimed her, Emma felt Sam's good arm wrap around her waist, holding her close. It felt right, being there with him. For once, her fear of loss was outweighed by the warmth of connection. The next week saw Sam regaining his strength. Emma continued her work at the Silver Dollar but returned home each evening to find him a little improved. They talked long into the nights, sharing stories from their pasts, dreams for their futures. In those quiet hours, something shifted between them, friendship deepening into something more profound. One evening, as Emma kneaded dough for the next day's bread, Sam watched her from the table where he sat drinking coffee. "You make that look easy," he commented. Emma smiled. "Years of practice. My mother taught me to bake when I was barely tall enough to reach the table." "You miss them? Your parents?" She nodded. "Every day. But it's different now. The pain isn't as sharp." "Time helps," Sam agreed. "So does having someone to share the burden." Emma's hands stilled on the dough. "Yes, it does." Sam stood and moved behind her, placing his good hand over hers. "Show me how." "To knead bread?" Emma laughed. "You'd find it dull work." "Not if you're teaching me." His closeness sent warmth through her that had nothing to do with the heat of the stove. Emma guided his hand, showing him how to push and fold the dough. The simple intimacy of the moment, his chest against her back, their hands working together, stirred something deep within her. "The secret," she said, her voice not quite steady, "is patience. You can't rush bread. It needs time to rise, to become what it's meant to be. Like people," Sam murmured near her ear. "Like us." Emma turned to face him, their hands still joined, covered in flour. "Is that what we're doing? Rising? Becoming something together?" Sam's eyes held hers, serious and certain. "I hope so. I want that, Emma. I want a life with you." Her heart skipped. Sam. I know it's fast. He continued. And I know you're afraid. But some things you just know. I knew the moment I saw you standing in the silver dollar that day, covered in flour and fire in your eyes. Emma couldn't help but smile. I was a mess. You were magnificent. He raised their joined hands, kissing her flour-dusted knuckles. And every day since has only confirmed what I felt then. What about your ranch? Emma asked, practical even as her heart soared. It's there. Waiting for us if you want it. Thomas has been managing well enough while I've been laid up here. And the silver dollar? Frank depends on me now. Roswell's growing. He'll find another cook. Sam's expression softened. Or maybe we could help him find someone. Visit town regularly. I'm not asking you to give up everything, Emma. Just to share your life with mine. Emma looked around the small house that had become home. When you first helped me find this place, I thought it would be just mine. A space where I could be independent, where I wouldn't need anyone. And now? Now I realize independence isn't about not needing anyone. It's about choosing who to need, who to love. She met his gaze. I choose you, Sam. The joy that spread across his face was like sunrise breaking over the desert. He pulled her close with his good arm, his lips finding hers in a kiss that tasted of flour and promise. Later, as the bread baked and filled the house with its comforting aroma, they sat at the table making plans. Not just for a wedding, but for a life, the ranch, the possibility of children, trips to town, dreams large and small. I never expected this, Emma admitted. When I came to Roswell, all I wanted was work and a roof over my head. Sam smiled. And all I wanted was a decent meal at the Silver Dollar. Fate has a sense of humor. That it does. Sam took her hand again. Remember what you said when Frank offered you the job? That you'd cook and go? Emma nodded. And you said I should cook and stay. Be loved while bread rises. Sam finished. I meant it then, though I hardly knew you. And I mean it even more now. 6 months later, Emma stood in the kitchen of the ranch house, larger and airier than her small place in town had been. Through the window, she could see Sam working with the horses in the corral, his shoulder fully healed now. Their wedding had been simple but joyous, with the whole town turning out to celebrate. Frank had given the bride away, tears in his eyes as he declared he was losing the best cook in the territory but gaining a fine story to tell. As Emma shaped loaves for the day's baking, she felt a contentment she had thought lost forever after her parents' deaths. The fear of loss hadn't vanished entirely, she doubted it ever would, but it no longer controlled her. Instead, she had learned to embrace love despite the risk, to savor each day rather than dreading tomorrow. The bread would take time to rise, as all good things did. And while it rose, she was loved. While it baked, she loved in return. And in the breaking and sharing of it, they built a life together, one day at a time. Emma wiped her hands on her apron and stepped outside into the sunshine. Sam looked up, smiling when he saw her, and she felt her heart swell with love for this man who had taught her that the greatest courage wasn't in standing alone, but in reaching for another's hand. Bread's rising, she called. Sam left the horses and walked to her, pulling her into an embrace. And are you being loved while it does? Emma laughed, wrapping her arms around his neck. Always. As they stood together under the vast New Mexico sky, Emma knew she had found not just a home, but a heart to match her own. She had come to Roswell to cook and go, but had instead learned the sweetest lesson of all, that sometimes the bravest choice was to stay.